Hello and welcome to another episode of Zulf Talks Photography. Today we're looking at best budget camera phones in 2020. So I was looking at some interesting articles and I thought, you know what, that's a good topic to look at because it's not all about DSLR cameras and mirrorless cameras and having really fancy lenses. Loads of people carry around mobile phones with them in their pocket every day, and it's an easy option to get into photography. It depends on what types of photos you're taking. And today we're going to basically look at a few options and I'm going to talk to you about sort of price ranges and what makes a good camera in terms of mobile phone photography. So I'm your host Zulf and welcome to the show. These cameras that we've been looking at recently are actually quite out there. So the best overall performer seems to be the Google Pixel 3a. It's a flagship quality camera phone, front and back. It's a decent price considering what you're getting there. And there's a few different options now. So in the US, you can pick up cameras. You can pick up cameras outside of the US. Best outside of the US seems to be the Moto G H Plus, which is a camera that we've been looking at quite significantly. So it's not loads of cameras, because that's a new thing now, isn't it? Where you're getting loads and loads of cameras. When I say loads of cameras, I'm talking about behind the phone. So I thought I had something up where there's like 15 or 20 cameras they had in the back of the phone. And we covered that in a previous news episode about light making that in the Nokia phones. But yes, so the Moto G is consistently a great choice for those who want to save money without compromising on their core smartphone experience. So that's something to look at. Triple camera system, dedicated action camera. And that's something to look at because it's got expandable storage. Obviously, it's an Android. The cons seem to be the software, updates can be slow, and it's outside the US. So that's something people are looking at. So if you think about it in terms of the overall performance, you want a decent camera, and megapixels seems to be the main kind of way most people judge it, isn't it? Am I right? Let me know in the comments. It'll be good to hear from you, because I think the Snapdragon 665 processor is what's in the Moto G. It's got a good battery, but it's got a bigger display, so interesting. And 48 megapixel main camera, which is a strong performer. We're always going to get this option until they get bigger sensors in the camera for the mobile phone. It's all going to be just one of those, isn't it? So here's a look I've been looking at. Light bows out of the smartphone camera industry. So Light were making those multiple camera lenses in the back of phones, but they had a bit of issues, so they have stopped producing that. However, looking at these, the Google Pixel 3a is a really good contender based on some of the pictures I've been looking at, and we do a weekly Edit My Raw segment on the photography live show. So if you're not familiar with that, do check that out. We basically get retouches from Reddit. So Reddit has its own sub community where they edit photos. I supply them Edit My Raw files, and they actually go in and edit those pictures just to see what can be done with them. So that's somewhere where you can actually supply images to people and they will give you feedback to say, actually, you know what, that image didn't have as much detail in as I thought. So it's a good place to test out what photos are doing or how they're doing, basically. So the Google Pixel 3a, the main pro seems to be, obviously it's a flagship level photo quality front and back, guaranteed software updates. Not so good on their side is the average battery life, and it's nearly a year old now. But the G power seems to be up on the list. 16 megapixel main camera. These are all options to look at. And do you want to spend that type of money on a fancy phone with a camera is where you want to basically take this. So I'm not really giving you a shopping list of phones you need to buy. I'm giving you the thinking behind the cameras. I'm talking from a point of view of the photography side of things. So would you be better placed buying a smartphone that is a smartphone and not going out looking for an actual amazing photography smartphone, rather spend some money on a different camera and have it dedicated for photography? Because that's kind of where the main benefits will come. If you have a dedicated camera for photography, you know that's your camera. That's the one you take photos with. During the day, if you use your phone, if you're doing some funny photography, taking it out in a interesting environment where it's loads of action going on, maybe on your bike, for example, would you rather mount your mobile phone, £1,000, $1,000 expensive mobile phone? Would you rather pick up an action camera, which gives you that quality? It's all down to what you do with the quality in the end. So it's going to be an individual basis thing. But I've given you a few options for phones, which you should think about, because there are additional options out there for different prices and different price points. I was lucky enough to speak to Patrick, who's a co-host on a podcast called Silly Mundane, and he co-hosts it with a friend from Canada. And they were actually, I asked him about his photography, so I did actually speak to him about that. So if I can bring up his episode, I can briefly let you hear his points of views, because it was interesting to hear his... Hello Patrick, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah, excellent, thank you. It's great to have you on the show. I was looking forward to this. I wanted to speak to you about your photography, how it plays a part in your current setup.
As far as photography, I am novice at best. I enjoy mobile photography and I enjoy snapping pictures here and there, and I have a rudimentary idea of framing and lighting and that kind of stuff. My wife is much better than I, but I had bought a Google Pixel specifically for the camera, and because you get updates for it a while back.
Oh wow, so what led you to make that change?
I remember going from an iPhone to that, and the iPhone, it took good pictures. I was on iPhone 8, and the Pixel 3 just blew it out of the water. I was like, oh, so this is what people are talking about. It was so good. The colors were so good, and the sharpness was great. It did magic. And then I started missing my iPhone again, and the iPhone 11 really took off with their camera and really matched what the Pixel could do. And it was back on iOS, so I ended up switching back to iPhone, and I didn't look back. I was quite happy with it.
Oh wow, that's an interesting journey there. So is that your main mobile phone? How are you finding that phone for photography and video?
So my primary camera is my iPhone 11.
How does it perform on day-to-day photos?
I use both cameras. It has the wide angle lens and the primary. I use the primary most of the time, but there are times that wide angle is just a lot of fun. I remember when I first got my phone, was out walking with my kid, and he was getting ahead of me a little bit, and I got down low and got a really cool wide angle shot. It was super dramatic, and he started to kind of run away in a joking way, so I started following along behind him with that wide angle shot, and I was like, this looks so cool. I guess you'd have to see it. Too much of a visual thing, but it was really cool. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Photography has that effect on people. It's a good outlet for getting your creativeness across. But I do know you've got your podcast as well. So is that your alternative where you share your creativeness with us?
I really like podcasting, and so I really enjoy making podcasts. It's mostly an excuse to talk with my friends and keep up with them a little bit. So, a lot of my podcasting stuff is done long distance, and so, in fact, all of it is. So it's a cool way to keep in touch with friends. So I really enjoy doing that, and I get a chance to learn about things. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's interesting you should mention that. I think that's a big plus of podcasts. You can learn a lot of new things listening to experts and other channels speaking about things. I normally like to look at my progression in years to see how things are going. Where do you see yourself in the next year or so with your podcast, and which direction you take it?
As far as where I see myself this time next year, I'm not sure. I'm going through some transitions in that, this podcast of mine is relatively new. We've released a few episodes. We've been doing it for about 6 months, but we kind of had a little bit of a slowdown with all the things going on right now. So I hope to get a few more episodes out this year and really come into our own next year. It'd be pretty cool. As far as professionally, I just started a new job and I love it, and I hope to really be coming into my own on that as well by next year.
Interesting times ahead, I think. So what are you currently working on?
As far as what I'm currently working on, we actually have an episode completed. We're in the process of doing a final edit on it, and we hope to get it out in the relative near future. But with all the goings on, we recorded a while back before all of this has happened, all this coronavirus and everything else going on. And so we started to do something else, and then more horribleness happened, and we're like, man, I don't know. I don't know if this is a good time to release an episode talking about how great Stardew is. So if we're just kind of sitting on it for a little bit, but we'll hope to get a few things going. We have at least 2 or 3 episodes planned out, and so we're hoping to start working on some of that in the coming weeks and months.
That sounds really exciting. I look forward to those new episodes coming out. And I think we'll try and get you on a longer episode where we speak about your journey from your phone, especially about the Pixel and your iPhone. I think there's a lot more there we can speak about, but we'll save that for another show. Thank you very much for joining me today, Patrick. Where else can our listeners find you and get in touch with you?
But yeah, I appreciate you talking to me. This has been fun. Like I said, our show's Silly Mundane Things. You can find it on most podcast catchers. I'm terrible at social media, but you can follow me on Twitter if you want.
That was me speaking to Patrick early on, so we arranged to speak about that because I was interested in his journey with photography on his mobile phone. You can find him on his podcast. We'll leave a link in the description, and they're doing some really fun stuff, so it'll be good for you guys to check them out and keep in top of those. It's been a great session today. I'm glad you joined us, and I'll see you on the next podcast soon.